cancel out the fans, man. That adds to the effect of the whole situation.
Hey, it's me, Shane, Gemini Garage. Today I want to talk about radios, and in particular, this big box. Wow, the history of this thing, this particular style of radio, goes back a long ways. While this radio here isn't that old, this particular design, meaning this large box, just the basic layout, back a long way. There was a radio called the Excalibur, which was kind of based on this same type of a platform. This was before they started putting the frequency display and everything. And then there was the Galaxy Malacca or Malika, I'm not sure how you spell that, pronounce that. That one also was along this same design, but before they had the frequency display, and there were some differences. And then they started making the 2547, the Galaxy, and then the RCI 2980, and then that ended up turning into the RCI 69 Base, and then that turned into the Base Plus. And so this thing's been around a long time. They have just stuffed pretty much everything they can think of, good, bad, and otherwise, into this box over the years. So, which is pretty much what they've done. It's like, this is the box, and they just, figure out what to put in there. So, a great radio, a great platform. Some years and some ones are better than other. Some are better on sideband than others, but they all serve their purpose pretty good. Most people just use them as a large CB base station. Having said that, it's been around a long time. There's a ton of them out there, and it's a pretty cool radio. There's even some European versions that have called, I'm trying to remember what the name of them are. I can't recall right off the name of my head. I'll flash it up on the screen when I remember it. But there's just a ton of other incarnations of this radio. And they're all pretty cool, but there's only one problem with most of them out there, and that is this. When it's plugged in, it's great. It works, and it does what it's supposed to do. But if you lose your power, are you kidding me? If you lose your power, you're screwed. And when I say that, a lot of base stations, even the old ones back in the 70s, they would have a port, a jack, something on the back where you could hook up, to 12 volts. And this does not have that. I'm not going to say every single model of this thing never had that, because, like I said, they made so many different incarnations of this thing. There could have been a manufacturer at some point that maybe, put a port in the back for 12 volts. But on most of these, no port in the back anywhere for 12 volts. As you can see on this one, I have modified it with a 10 kZ switch over here, and then also a fan on-off switch here, because there's a fan in there. And so what I'm going to do is we are going to put a couple of those binding posts on the back of here. Same kind of binding posts that I used for this 12 volt battery box here, and I got a video on making this thing here. But I'm going to put a couple of these binding posts and a toggle switch on the back of here. So if the power goes out, you can flick the toggle switch, basically flip your switch to DC, hook up 12 volts to it, and still use the radio. So that's what we're going to do today, and hopefully that'll be like I said, there's a ton of these radios out there, so hopefully there will be a lot of people that can learn how to do that, so that you can use these things when your power goes out. So with that, I'm going to get my stuff together here, and I'll be back. So stick with me. The first thing you need to do when you're working on this beast is to get it apart. So I'm going to use this handy dandy little drill driver. I just did a review on this Warrior and Drill Master from Harbor Freight, this little screwdriver here. I'm going to use that for this, and this didn't come with it, but I'm using an extension, a little easier to get into some of these places here. But this thing's got a bunch of screws on it, so I'll probably speed this up, because there's no sense of talking through all this, right? just kind of pull on the sides and pull it straight up. There's 3 screws back here, but those were already removed. I had this thing, how I had it sitting was with these 3 screws removed in the back and not the handlebars on it, because I get into it a lot, just because. Okay. Alright. Let's see what we got here. The best way to try and show you what we're going to do here. Let's see, we'll spin it around here. By the way, this is on a little device called a Lazy Susan. I'll show you that later. It's just this little flat spinner thing that it sits on so you can spin it around. It's really kind of nice to have it on there. Okay, let's see here. So your power supply area is over here, obviously. And this thing has a couple of wires underneath it. I believe the orange wire goes from the underside of the board, and that's the positive. This one here, this red wire here, that's your red power wire, like from your plug-in here, and then your white and your ground. So these top corner areas, there's just not a lot there, so that's a good spot for something like that. So anyways, so I've decided to put it over in this corner, kind of on the top here, because the power supply is over here and you got all the wires going to that, and there's a little bit of room here for, you know, maybe a couple small toggle switches, but you know, you might be needing to get to this stuff here, and it's going to be a lot easier without anything else in the way. So, well, I got my 3 holes marked. Kind of hard to see there. There's one right there, one right there. Those top 2 are for the binding post, and there's one down here kind of in the lettering here, and that's going to be for the toggle switch there. So, okay, so the 2 on top and then one in the middle of the paragraph there. And I've got it masked up pretty good in this little corner here. Again, I'm going to try and have the vacuum on while I'm drilling there, but I got this kind of little cavity in here all kind of taped up on the bottom and on the side, so it's just kind of a little bit of a, oh, I guess you can't see. Now you can see. I'm going to be, of course, drilling on the back side of here, 1, 2, 3, and so any fillings, metal filings will be going in down in here, and then I'll have the vacuum cleaner going to kind of keep that, you know, cleaned out, so it should be okay. So I'm going to be using some of these center drill bits, which are great for thinner metal. Well, it's not going to focus. Sorry about all this crappy camera work here, but so I'm going to start by using a really small bit here and just drilling these small holes here. Just drilling them real small at first. Got the first little divot there. That's what I'm going to do on all these, is just get my first little bit in there. So I got my hole started there, and then I'll start sucking some of this up. Kind of going to wait to use the vacuum. Well, I guess I could kind of use it while I'm putting that hole in there. I was going to say I don't want to suck the tape off, but I can probably way to do it, right? I'm going to drill this bottom one here without the vacuum because there's some tape right on the other side of it. Okay, so we got all our first 3 little holes drilled. Suck up some of this stuff here. Okay, now let me grab these binding posts here and make double sure I can remember what size bit I need to use. Okay. Yeah, let's see here. Yeah, let's at least one of these. So try one of these here and see if that gets it. I'll crank up the vacuum while I'm doing this. And I'll chuck it in here first. Okay, that's just basically, it's what you call a real severely redneck dust collector, and it isn't even dust, it's metal shading, so. All right, let's see if these little things have a shoulder, you know, that you need to have go through the hole here to keep the, it keeps the stud on the post from, you know, touching any metal in there, so. I'm probably going to need a bigger hole than that. Yeah, I can't remember what size hole that is. Let me go get my bigger bit there. That was friggin' brutal, man. Okay, but we achieved our objective, and that's going to be just fine there. Now, I'm going to see what size hole this toggle switch needs, because I don't know if it's going to need a bigger one or a smaller one than this here. Yeah, it's going to need a little bit bigger one than that. But I can start drilling that hole anyways with this bigger one, so let's see here. I'm just going to go ahead and shop vac. Well, it's not a shop vac, it's my household vacuum. Okay, I'm going to pause this real quick and get it together here. Okay, so this hole here for the toggle switch, it was just a tiny bit small, so I just took that bit in here and just ran it in there a couple of times and just, you know, did that thing you shouldn't do when you're drilling a hole and just kind of wallowed it a little bit. But it's fine, because like I said, it's going to have a toggle switch coming through the back, and it's going to have this plate on there, and it's fine. It's a clean hole, clean enough. So I'm going to clean all this up here, get the tape off of here, suck the vacuum down in there really good, turn it upside down, make sure we're all good with the metal shadings and the holes are all clean, and then we'll get to putting this stuff in and wiring it up. Okay, so I guess you could say this is kind of a mock-up of what it will look like when it's done, or how it'll be. You got your binding post here, your binding post here, and then your toggle switch here, which will select basically from AC to DC. So that all turned out pretty good. Fits on there fine, you know. And so now basically what I got to do is I got to wire it up on the inside there. So I'll have 3 wires going to this switch here, and then 2 wires, a wire going to each binding post. This switch is basically an on-off, or it's basically an on-on. So the feed for the radio will go in the center, and then power feed from the power supply will go to one side, and then the power from the battery terminal will go to the other. And then depending on which one you're using, will determine on which way you got the toggle switch. So that's pretty much how that works as far as that wiring goes. Like I said, basically the same as an AC/DC switch. It just ensures that, I mean, you could splice this into the power supply wire, and if you lost power, you could still run 12 volts to this. And I don't even think it would hurt to run 12 volts into this power supply if it wasn't plugged into the wall. I don't think it would probably hurt it any, unless the power supply itself was damaged or something, and then that wouldn't be good. You want, but just to be on the safe side, and just to do it the way that it should be done, you should have it so that it separates the power feed from the power supply. So just going to go ahead and do that. It'll be a couple extra wires and a couple extra things to figure out, but it'll be doing it right. And like I said, I think this it'll be nice when it's done. I think that looks good. So that'll work. All right, so I'm going to I basically need to grab some wire. I'm also going to put a fused wire on this positive side too. So yeah. All right, I'm going to get some wires and some stuff, and we'll get to the fun part. I guess putting the holes in was the fun part. The wiring's really cake work. You just got to think a little bit about what goes where, and just kind of pay attention. So. Alright, so upon further examination, ultimately what I need to do is I need to run a wire from this post here to this side of the switch, and then from the power supply to this side of the switch, and then this orange wire here is actually the power wire to the board, and so I need to run that wire to the top part of the switch. Now I could extend it and run it over this way, but the whole thing, that this orange wire here starts under here and runs underneath all of this and comes up to here, so it really makes sense just to take this wire here, shorten it, bring it up through this hole here, and hook it up to the switch here. A shorter run is probably going to be better for the power supply anyways. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up taking one of these larger wires and running it from the power supply over to here. So it'll actually have a bigger wire going to the power supply to the switch than the original wire. And then the wire that's going to the board that gets the power from, it'll be shorter, so it'll be probably good for the electrical system. It's I'm not going to hurt to shorten this wire and then beef up the wire going from here to here. So that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. That just makes the most sense rather than just trying to splice and trim and do all this. I'm going to be modifying it obviously and rearranging some of the factory configurations, but that's okay. These things needed some work from the factory. Anyways, these things really are kind of kits. I mean, you can just get them and use them as they are, but if you really want to use them a lot, they could use some work, and that's the beauty of them. They're big and boxy. You can get in there and put all kinds of switches and knobs. Like I said, you can see I've already modified this one. There's a cooling fan in here that I got in there for if I want to turn a fan on. So So anyways, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get what I need together to do all this. I'm going to I guess take the bottom off, and yeah. So stick with me. Okay, well, we're getting there. I decided to do some of this off camera. It was a little bit of cursing and swearing. It's late and I'm kind of tired and I get a little impatient. And all these big wires trying to route them out through here, you got a little tedious, and it's fine. But I got this one up here onto the power supply here, and I got this one here on the positive going to the this one here, and then the negative. I need to tighten this one up here and tighten this one up here, and then I think I'm done. Of course, I'll double check the routing of all this stuff. It's a good idea to try to make sure your power wires aren't touching on anything, or if they're rubbing or close to something, put a little bit of tape or just something on it just to kind of, you don't have to worry about it as much with a base station, but still, that's just a good habit to try and make sure your wires are all, reasonably out of the way. So, all right, with that, I'm going to take a break here, and I'm going to get a little wrench to tighten those things up there. And apparently, just grounding this to the case, the power wire going to the main board, of course, was that orange one that went here, but there was also a ground wire going to the board, and that one is here. And I figured that this whole thing was just grounded to the chassis, and it's kind of grounded to it when the power supply is on, but when it's off, it creates a non-ground. So it's sort of a switched ground, I guess you could say. So what I need to do is take and run a wire, remove this wire going down to the chassis from here, and take a wire and run it from here and run it over here to this wire here. Okay, boys and girls, a little bit of a recap here. So, in wiring all this up, one of the last things I did or needed to do was to wire this ground here for the negative on for the battery. I figured I would just run a ground from this to the chassis, the frame, whatever, because it's all grounded, or so I thought. Well, the negative wire that comes off the board goes straight to the power supply, and the power supply is not grounded unless it's on or running. When it's on or running, you can check it with a continuity meter and it shows ground. So you might just say, well, why don't you just ground the power supply or ground this to the power? Because it didn't originally come that way, and I don't know if there's a reason why they have it so that the wire goes straight, to the power supply and isn't, grounded as well. So what I'm going to do is just basically take this wire here and tap it into the wire that's running here into the power supply. That way the board will be getting, the straight ground from this into the wire, just like the positive is, and it won't be grounding it and getting it through the ground of the chassis. Because like I said, this power supply, when it's off, it doesn't complete the ground. So just going to run, take this wire off here and run another wire from here up to, that's this one right here, and we'll splice it into this one here, and should be a done deal. So that's what we got going on there. Let me see here. I can grab a wrench right now and start taking some of this off of here. I'm just going to take this off here because I had a shorter piece. Now I was going to go down straight down through here and tap it into there, but the only problem is it's kind of hard to get to the wire in there, and there's just not a really good place to splice it in there, and I don't want to solder it into the board or try screwing with it under there. So I'm just going to do what I originally thought, and I'm just going to run the wire from here basically over to this wire here. Okay, another little update. I don't mean to be so redundant, but it is wiring, and electrical. So so once again, we need to take and run our ground from here over to, this was on the 4th screw from the bottom up, the way this thing's sitting. But this is it's the power supply ground. So this is the wire that runs back and underneath to the underside of the board here, just like this orange one did. So I'm going to take and pull this out a little bit, and like I said, I'm going to take this wire here and attach it to here, and then splice it into this one here, and we'll be good to go. So I'm going to figure out exactly how I'm going to do that, and then We'll get back to it. The wire that comes off the ground for the board is right here. I pulled it off the power supply, snipped the end off of it and stripped it. Where this was, I put a ground wire coming off the power supply, and that's this one here. And then there's another one mixed in there, which is this one here, which is going to go back to the negative on the binding post here. So binding post wire goes here, motherboard wire or circuit board wire goes here, and power supply ground wire right here. So all three of those are going to be joined up right here. Then I'm going to hook this one up to there, and that should be good to go. Just kind of what I had laying around. I really didn't need 10 gauge wire, but that's just kind of the spare pieces of wire I had laying around. It's certainly not going to hurt anything. I'm probably just going to take a wire nut, cap, and just cap this off, zip tie the wires, and just leave it. That's going to be good enough. I don't want to get into trying soldering and all this, because that's really not necessary, and it's, that's going to be good enough. It's a base station, so it's not going to be vibrating around. Not to mention the fact that's going to be just as good as some of the stuff they did in the factory anyways. I believe when I opened this radio up, all the screws for the power supply wires were loose, and they were just kind of barely sitting on there. So yeah, they've got some issues from the factory, so I don't think putting a wire nut on here and securing it is going to cause the space-time continuum to fragment. So that's what I'm going to do, and we'll be back, and then we'll get that other thing joined up there on the bottom there to that binding post, and then we will fire this bitch up and see if it's working. Stick with me. So yeah, I just decided to go ahead and use a plastic wire nut on this. It's a black one on here. No shame in that. Like I said, it's not really a big deal. It's a base station, so you'll find these in the fuse panel of your house, so it'll be fine for on here, even though there's like this thing that's you're never supposed to use wire nuts for anything 12 volt because that's automotive or whatever. I don't know. Whatever works. But one thing you should do, or that helps a lot when you're using a wire nut, is to take the wires that are going up into the nut, and just below the nut, maybe ½ inch, however big the wires are, put a zip tie around those, because that'll keep all those wires tighter together, and it's just kind of less stress of them trying to pull out of the cap here. You do that, and then put a little bit of electrical tape or some shrink tubing on here, and that really lessens your odd. Even if this cap gets a little bit loose or something down the road, it's not going to just fall off and expose your wires. So, okay, let's get to putting this thing back together now. Once again, after you've had it apart like this and done all this stuff to it, it really doesn't hurt to kind of take the thing and shake it upside down and around a little bit to make sure there isn't anything else, any metal pieces or anything laying in there. Okay, I think we're good to go there. So let's get the bottom back on here. And again, you don't want to tighten any screws up on this thing until they're all in, whether it's the bottom or the top cover. Just want to make sure they're all in there the way they're supposed to be. Some of them can be a little Okay, well, I think we're about done bolting this thing back together. So let's get this thing plugged in here and see what we got. Alright, so we got all our screws back in. We got them tightened up, and like I said, you want to make sure they're all in before you tighten them up, and you don't want to, reef on them too hard. Just, tighten them down until they're good and snug is good enough for this. Once again, this thing is on what they call a Lazy Susan. It's basically this thing. It's made for your, if you don't know what it is, it's made for like your dinner table. Well, like people have dinner at the table anymore. But anyways, back in the day when people would sit around the dinner table, they put stuff on here. It's easier to spin this around and reach for something than to have to reach over and whatever. And also sometimes cupboards, people would put these inside of a cupboard and put their spices and stuff on here. But it's called a Lazy Susan. I'm not sure where it got that name from. There used to be a term called Susie Homemaker. So maybe Susie Homemaker got one of these and then it made her work too easy and she became a Lazy Susan. I don't know. But anyways, it works great modern day for putting great big huge base station radios on. If you've got it sitting on an end table, just whatever you've got it sitting on, it really makes it nice. That way it's you're not constantly yanking on your microphone cord, and you can have it sitting kind of one way, and and then if you're talking on it, you can turn it whatever direction you want. So works out pretty good. So with that, I'm going to take a break here and do a couple more things, and then I'm going to come back and see if this thing actually works. Alright, so you got your base station, you're all happy, you're listening to the skip, maybe talking to your locals. Why is it whenever you try to get the skip to come in, it doesn't want to come in on the channel you're on, right? So anyways, you're sitting here, you're listening to the skip, you're playing on your radio, and then all of a sudden the next thing you know, you got a power outage. But you got your portable battery box and you got your conversion here, so you just flip your toggle switch in the back and there you go, man. You're good to go. You're good to go. That's how it ought to be right there. That's a nice little setup right there. So once again, if you want to know what a good use for one of these battery boxes is, once again, if you want to know what a really good use for one of these battery boxes is, there you go. And then, when your power outage is over, you can leave it plugged in. So, when your power comes back on, all you got to do is just flip your toggle back over to the other one. But power goes out, you got it hooked up to your box already, just flip it over. And that's the cool thing. You can have this box just all charged up. You can have this thing, have a little trickle charger on it. Keep it down, behind your desk or your couch, wherever you got your radio at, right? Just, good to go. So, yeah. Anyways, again, there's a video on me putting this thing together here. There's a video of the wire strippers that I used and the wire crimpers that I used. There's, videos on a lot of the stuff I used in this, putting this together. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. And hey, can't beat that, right? Click the like and subscribe if you think about it. And good luck with your modifications to your base station. So, see you in the next video. Shane, Gemini Garage.